Before I get started, I just want to thank the search committee and Rabbi Lerner and this whole community for welcoming me and my husband so graciously. You've all been such gracious and welcoming hosts, and we really, really appreciate it. Shabbat Shalom. I want to start by telling you a story of what my husband and I did in the spring of 2020 when we were stuck in our tiny New York City apartment. While we heard sirens go from hospital to hospital, we stayed in our apartment, and our Shabbat routine completely changed. Before, in the winter of 2020, we would go to friends' houses for Shabbat dinners, we would daven at different shuls, and then all of a sudden, one Shabbat, it was just the two of us. And this is the routine and the ritual that we developed. On Fridays, I would make a new challah recipe. We would try a different challah recipe every week. And then we would have Shabbat dinner together, and then we would play Rummy Cube until we fell asleep. On Saturday mornings, we would drink our special Shabbat coffee together, which are these canned La Colombe draft lattes. And then I would pick up a book. I would sit in the corner of the couch, open the book to the first page, and I wouldn't talk to my husband until I finished the book. I did read a lot of books in those days, and each book, generally a historical fiction or a literary fiction novel, marked Shabbat for me in a holy but very different way. As I explained, the Shabbatot before we were in our apartment were marked by meals, by singing, and by friends. Each Shabbat looked different, a new meal with a new person, a new shul to daven at. But the Shabbatot that we spent in the spring of 2020 were characterized by routine, and they really demarcated Shabbat for me in a new and very special way. Well, I'm really grateful to report that I don't remember the last time I finished a book in one sitting on Shabbat, because our Shabbats are again full of meals and shul and friends. I sometimes miss the routine I had to look forward to and also the preparation for that routine. But since then, I've realized how much of our routine are not marked by what we choose to do, but actually marked by routines set by our ancestors. We made our own routines of comfort in times of darkness, but the routines of Shabbat that we've returned to connects me both to my past and to future generations. These routines give structure and cadence to our Jewish lives, from daily prayer to our ritual garb, to Shabbat davening, and even to Rosh Chodesh. Today, we mark Rosh Chodesh, Adar Rishon, and we start to increase in our joy in preparation for Purim in Adar Sheni. And when Rosh Chodesh comes on Shabbat, we actually read a special Haftarah to mark the day from the book of Isaiah. The Haftarah is read today because of its penultimate line, which says, "And new moon after new moon, and Shabbat after Shabbat, all flesh shall come to worship me, said God." The remainder of this Haftarah is about God's glorious return to Zion and the universal worship of God in Jerusalem. I wonder why the Jews ritualized this reading for Shabbat Rosh Chodesh. Sometimes we create a ritual because it's a pattern that coincidentally starts, then continues, like my reading of books. Other times there's some greater meaning. This Haftarah reminds us that each month, every Israelite will have the chance to come into a renewed relationship with God, no matter what the month before held for them. The book of Isaiah as a whole began with the prophet Isaiah proclaiming that the Israelites didn't celebrate Shabbat or holidays properly because they didn't understand the meaning of them. Now, in this last chapter of Isaiah that we're about to read, hope is reinstilled. At the beginning of Isaiah, Isaiah is worried about the destruction of Zion. And the end of Isaiah tells us that Zion will prevail. We'll be able to celebrate Rosh Chodesh again and again. Rosh Chodesh, unlike other Jewish holidays that are set by God in the Torah, is actually set by the people. How, you might ask? Rosh Chodesh is based on the cycle of the moon, and it can happen every 29 or 30 days. In Talmudic times, it was based on the testimony of two witnesses and a court. Rosh Chodesh required human certification and confirmation that it had occurred and it could be celebrated. Because of this, Rosh Chodesh requires and also sustains the Jewish people to exist. While we have the blueprint to know when Rosh Chodesh is coming, the sky, we need witnesses to confirm its presence, and we need to acknowledge that it's actually here. Rosh Chodesh is the only holiday we know is coming without a calendar because it's a visual reminder. The moon, we don't need any physical calendar to remind us that the moon is here. In our ever-complicated world filled with grief, strife, and sadness, Rosh Chodesh gives us a chance for some hope, as the prophet Isaiah says, some newness, some light, maybe even some levity. Often communities will join to celebrate Rosh Chodesh with art, with food, and with song. Rituals can be like containers to hold joy or to hold sorrow, to hold happiness or to hold grief. And on Rosh Chodesh, depending on the month you anticipate entering, you can hold any or all of these, or even bring new feelings in. There's this doctor at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York City. Her name is Dr. Rachel Yehuda. She's a psychiatrist who studies post-traumatic stress recovery for Holocaust survivors, and she notes the importance of the finality of ritual. She says, what's very interesting about ritual is that it's a day that occurs on the specified time on the calendar. It starts at a certain time, it ends at a certain time, and so too the effects end. So you set aside a certain part of your life to remember and acknowledge, but it doesn't own you. And then when you put it into context, you're able to carry it with you. We must be reminded of the container ritual can hold consistently, as our Haftarah remind us. Ritual is not always in front of our eyes, but in the case of Rosh Chodesh, we can look up to the sky, even in this beautiful Beit Knesset, and be reminded that it is time to enact on a generations-old ritual. Just like reading a book every Shabbat was a restorative ritual every week for me, I want to offer Rosh Chodesh as an opportunity to carve out sacred time or a sacred moment for ritual. Rather than being so beholden to our calendars as so many of us are the rest of the month, Rosh Chodesh can come with us wherever we are, whenever we look up into the sky and realize the new month has come. We're reminded of Rosh Chodesh not by the ping of our phones, but by the beauty of our natural world. This Haftarah surely reminds me of sacred rituals that often my phone does not remind me of, and I hope it can do the same for you. Shabbat Shalom.